Hello, Dr. Groves and classmates. This is Nicole Dalton, and this is my Week 3 Multimedia Discussion Board for MPA 530. The budget that I'll be using for this project and throughout this course is the City of Rancho Cucamonga's budget. And in this discussion board, we'll be covering what kind of budget the City of Rancho Cucamonga uses and the disadvantages and advantages to that. In a little housekeeping before I get started, all of the sources that I've used for this presentation are going to be located at the bottom of the PowerPoint slide. And with that, I will get started. After reviewing the City of Rancho Cucamonga's open budget, which I have included a screenshot here, I determined that they're utilizing a line item budget. And the reason why I came to this conclusion was that for fiscal year 2020, you can see that the general fund is separated into all of the different departments, and then it also is sectioned off into the amended budget, the actual amount, and the adopted budget. So that way you can see how much money was allocated for each department and then how much money was actually utilized and for each of those departments. A line item budget is commonly used because of the positives that it does come with it. And in the journal that I found, it goes through the positives and negatives of a line item budget. Some of the positives include that it's easy to create, it's easy to track the different allocated funds, and then for community members who are reviewing an open budget and maybe not be familiar with budgets, it's easy to digest and understand that information, because if you have a very complicated budget, then you can share it with residents, but they're not going to understand how to review it. Some of the negative sides of a line item budget is that it's hard to adjust. So when you have to go through a review period, it's going to be hard to either increase your amount. I'm sure it's easier to decrease the amount that's allocated to your department or program, but it's hard to increase it. And then another thing is that it's really hard to justify why you're spending certain things, because those line items are so quick and short. So it's hard to explain why you're needing that certain amount of funds for your programming or department. One of the things that I mentioned about the line item budget was that it's hard to justify your reasonings for wanting to increase your funds or where your money is being spent. And so in the 70s, this concept was created of a zero-based budget. And so a zero-based budget is where agencies and managers have to justify every reasoning, like building the ground up basically, and justify why they need to spend a certain amount of money on a certain program or department. And this kind of helps with the concept of, well, this is how we've always done things. When you have a zero-based budget, you can recreate the way you do things each year. And so that way it lets people know that money is actually, there's a reason behind what is being spent and how it's being spent. And so that way it could be easily adjusted every single year. This is just an alternative to resolve one of those issues that comes with a line item budget, but doesn't necessarily mean it is foolproof itself, because a zero-based budget is going to take a lot of time to create and manpower, and it kind of creates a divide for people when they have to go in and justify their reasonings for their program. They're probably going to be defensive and a little bit guarded when it comes to going into budget meetings for a zero-based budget project. So in the previous slides, I went over the positives and negatives of a line item budget, and then I also offered one alternative solution to being able to justify the allocated funds for the department, and that isn't necessarily what I would recommend for the City of Rancho Cucamonga. I believe my recommendation would be to implement a program-based budget, because implementing this program-based budget wouldn't take the City of Rancho Cucamonga completely away from the line item budget. It would just add another element that could resolve some of those issues that come with the line item budget. And then in the article that I found on this, it states that doing a program-based budget, it highlights the units and activities that are being spent throughout the city. And then by doing a program-based budget, it gives the constituents or residents who are reviewing the budget a greater understanding of how funding is being spent by the city, and it may make them feel more at ease and knowing where their taxes are going when the city and community is very transparent. The only issue with a program-based budget is that it's very time-consuming for staff and it's not necessarily as common. So the city would have to make a lot of investments in having to train individuals on how to develop this program-based budget for the city of Rancho Cucamonga. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you all have a great weekend.